Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at Create Interactive, a mod that adds jetpacks to create, grappling hooks, drills, drones, new tools, and a whole lot of other really cool stuff. So first, we're going to take a look at the new armors and tools added by Stuff and Additions. So we've got 3 brand new sets of armor and tools. We've got a copper tier, zinc tier, and brass tier. Now where these kind of line up is copper and zinc are kind of around the same level as iron. I think copper is a little bit worse and zinc is a little bit better. And brass is quite a bit better than iron, but still worse than diamond. So as you're playing through the game, this is kind of how I would imagine it going. You'd have zinc, copper, and iron all kind of being interchangeable depending on what you're finding in your world. Then you'd have brass, which would be a pretty nice upgrade before you get full sets of diamond, because sometimes it just takes a while to find enough diamond. And then you'd have diamond and netherite above that. So they're all definitely quite useful, and also they just look pretty nice, especially the brass set. It just feels so creative, and I really do like how the textures look. So now we're going to take a look at some of the more interesting tools added by the mod. So 2 of these might look pretty familiar if you've been playing Create for a long time, and that's our blazing and our gilded tools. Now these actually were in Create for a while before they got removed, I think around update 0.3, and the mod is going to actually take some of the features of these and port it over. And we do have one brand new tool set, which is our Experified or Experience swords and tools. Now the Experience swords are pretty easy to craft up. You just need heaps of experience, which are crafted with 4 nuggets of experience, and a quality tool handle, which is just 2 zinc. Our gilded quartz tools are a little more complex, requiring mechanical crafting, where we need 2 polished rose quartz, iron sheets, gold, and quality tool handles. And then of course each different tool is going to have a slightly different recipe, but they're all relatively cheap and pretty easy to craft up. And our blazing tools are actually pretty interesting because you need to heat a mixing with gold and crushed obsidian to get your blazing tools. Now what these tools actually do is pretty interesting. So your experience tools, whenever they take durability damage, you do get a small chance of getting a little bit of experience. Oh, so there we go. We just got a little bit of experience from just using our tools. So these can be really nice, especially if you're like mob farming. Just use the sword and you'll get a little bit of bonus experience. And also the tools just work pretty quickly. I believe this is around iron level, so it's definitely worth it to craft these up, especially if you have lots of solidified experience. Now back when Create added these tools, the gilded quartz would basically give you a little bit more reach. Now they no longer do that, so you can see if I go to where I can just reach it, I can reach that with pretty much any tool. But what they do is they mine a little bit faster than gold, and they're going to have a lot more durability. So if we take a look at our gilded quartz, we have 1644 durability, and our gold pickaxe is only going to have 32. So our gilded tools are actually going to be really quite useful. Now our blazing tools are actually maybe even more useful, especially early game, because what they do is they automatically smelt up blocks. So if you want to automatically get smooth stone, you can do that. The other cool thing that our blazing tools are going to do is if you want to fight mobs, they will automatically cook their drops. So if you have a mob farm or like a cow farm or chicken farm or something and you want to get the actual like cooked food, you can just straight up do that without needing any enchantments. So the blazing tools are really quite useful. And as far as durability goes, the blazing and experience tools are pretty low, with the experience tools being only 270, but they can be enchanted up with unbreaking and mending and stuff, so they're still definitely worth adding to your arsenal. Although do keep in mind, whenever you're harvesting trees with your blazing axe, it will automatically turn it into charcoal, which you may want, but it's just something to be aware of, because if you have a full set of blazing tools, you are going to be not able to harvest wood. So now we're going to take a look at some more advanced tools that the mod adds to your game, starting off with the slime helmet and slime boots. Now both of these are around the iron level, and the slime boots work very similar to the classic Tinker's Construct slime boots, where if I jump off a surface, I'll start bouncing, and I won't take fall damage. So if I toggle into survival, even then when I jump off, I won't take any fall damage, which is pretty sweet and definitely really quite useful. One thing that's actually pretty nice about these that the Tinker's boots don't do is even if you're just jumping, you're triggering the bounce effect, which means you can move really quickly with these, which is really quite fun. The other thing that it adds is the slime helmet. Now what the slime helmet does is it basically makes your head sticky, so it allows you to stick to the underside of blocks and move around. I think this is a pretty niche feature, and I don't know how useful it's actually going to be, but it is cool nonetheless, and especially like if you're caving and you got like a bunch of really scary stuff down below or lots of spiders or creepers, it might be nice just kind of like make a quick escape and stick to the ceiling. Also, it could be really useful for building. But yeah, definitely a really cool little set of tools to add to your kit. Next, we have the exoskeleton and jetpack. Now, what the exoskeleton does is basically it'll allow you to get different effects based on what exoskeleton you have. So there are 3 tiers. There's the copper, the andesite, and the brass. Now, one thing you'll notice about these is they require fuel and water, and that's where these filling tanks and fueling tanks come into place. The filling tanks are meant for water, and you basically just right-click water, and that will fill it up. Now you can see it's draining pretty quick because it's automatically going into my exoskeleton. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill this up a bunch, let it fill up my exoskeleton, and then we're going to do the same with lava for our fueling tank. And now sadly this does actually use up lava, so you will need to be generating lava to, kind of keep these going all the time. So you can see we're filling up with fuel and water. And right away you'll notice we have 8 armor with a brass exoskeleton. And if you look at that compared to netherite, netherite is 8 armor. Now we are missing the toughness of it, but that's pretty cool, especially because the craft, it's complex, but it's not necessarily hard. It requires a lot of brass and this new steam engine, which is a sequence assembly with some cogs and a propeller and andesite alloy, all relatively cheap. Now there is a different engine for the 2 other versions. So for the andesite one, you need to make a heat engine, which you can see is crafted like this. So that's mainly using andesite, zinc, and copper. And then for the copper exoskeleton, you actually don't need mechanical crafting. You can just basically do it if you have a small, simple sequence assembly, which is just a sheet and some water. So that one is actually really quite cheap. So now that I have this on, you'll notice I have haste and strength, which is pretty sweet. So just our chest piece is giving us haste and strength, which is awesome. Now going down a tier to our andesite one, I'm just going to grab this creative filling tank just for now. You see that gives me weakness and haste too. So it's a little better as far as like the haste goes, but you do have to kind of balance it out because you're going to have weakness, so you're not going to be as strong if you have to fight mobs. But definitely cool to have that haste 2 enchantment around with you. And then if we go down to copper, we get strength 2, but mining fatigue, so we can't mine, but we can fight extra good. So it's kind of like copper if you want to fight, andesite if you want to mine, and then brass if you want to be a little bit good at both of them. And also, doesn't this look cool? You get a cool little flywheel at the back of the brass one. The zinc one, you get a little gearbox and this cool backpack. And the copper one, same thing, looks very similar to the zinc one, but just kind of copper colored. These are super cool little models, and I really do like these. Now we get on to the fun stuff, jetpacks. So if I go ahead and pop into survival, you can see we can fly, which is pretty cool. Now there are, again, 3 tiers of jetpacks. We have the brass jetpack, we have the andesite jetpack, and then we have the copper jetpack. And again, those are crafted with those same engines. Now, nice thing about the copper jetpack is it's not going to be as good, but it only requires water. You don't actually need the fuel component. Now, I don't think we're going to fly as long, unless this is infinite flight. I really haven't tested these out too much, so let's see how long we can go. So it looks like we can actually go pretty much infinitely. I'm thinking it's definitely not as quick though, and let's go test the height. So our copper jetpack can go about this high and at that speed. If we swap to our andesite jetpack and throw on our slime boots so we don't take damage, this one does require fuel. Oh, okay, here we go. It tells us. So the copper one only went 17 blocks up, and there is a hover mode, which is pretty cool. And the andesite one is also going to go 17 blocks up, but it's going to go a lot faster. And if we shift in air, oh, we unlock a hover mode, which is going to be so useful for building. That's a really cool feature and really powerful. So that goes about the same blocks up, but yeah, as we can see, much faster. And if we take a look at the brass jetpack, we get to go 10 blocks higher. And I would imagine this would go even faster. Seems about the same speed as the andesite, but that extra height is really quite nice. And it looks like these also have another feature where if we activate dive mode, we can move faster in water. So let's fly on over to a body of water and swim around. Whoa! Does that just give us Dolphin's Grace? It doesn't, but that's like, is that faster than Dolphin's Grace? Yeah, so when we're swimming, if we hold space, we kind of go hyperspeed. That's really cool. And then we can just fly out of the water. Whoa, that is a lot of fun. And that movement is really quite smooth. Like, honestly, like, it's not as good as an elytra as, like, covering distance. But I would say it's just as much fun to just move around your world. And yeah, as we come up to a mountain, it'll automatically adjust the height we're going up to. That's pretty sweet. At the copper level, the jetpack provides just as much armor as the exoskeleton. At the andesite level, we can see we're a little bit behind, and at the brass level, we're quite a bit behind. So starting off, the copper jetpack is going to be pretty good for you, but then as you get further down the tech tree of the mod, it might even make sense to have the brass exoskeleton and jetpack in your kit to be able to swap back and forth, because they both seem quite useful. Along with the armor, the mod also adds some really neat little tools, which are the portable drill, grappling whisk, flamethrower, and block picker. The portable drill is going to use that steam engine and a new brass drill head, which is relatively easy to craft. The grappling hook is going to use our heat engine and a whole bunch of minecart couplings. The block picker is going to use our hydraulic engine, and the flamethrower is going to use our heat engine, a blaze burner, and mechanical crafting to craft up. So none of them are too difficult to craft, but they will definitely take time and feel like these are kind of mid-game, and your portable drill is maybe more of an end-game craft. Now the drill needs fuel and water, the grappling hook just needs fuel, the block picker just needs water, and the flamethrower also just needs fuel. So you'll definitely need a lot of these filling tanks. And one thing I should mention about the filling tanks is it doesn't seem like they can be filled via spout, which is too bad because they do take quite some time to kind of right click and fill up, but I bet you could probably do it with a deployer. In fact, I'm actually going to test that quick so you guys can know. All right, moment of truth. Looks like we cannot use a spout to fill it up. Now let's go ahead and test a deployer. So with a deployer, I think we'd have to give the tank to the hand. And in theory, it should fill up. It does work. Okay, so you can automate the filling of these using deployers on water or lava. So that's pretty cool that those can be automated. But back to our tools. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into survival so we can test these out. So the drill is basically just going to be a really nice version of a pickaxe. And I believe it seems like this is about diamond level. Yeah, I'd say this is probably like a pretty good enchanted pickaxe. It almost feels like efficiency 4, maybe even efficiency 5 speed, which is pretty sweet. And sadly, it can't actually be enchanted with like silk touch or anything, but I mean, it works, and it works pretty dang well. Now, the block picker is pretty interesting, especially being able to get this early game, because what this allows you to do is right click any block and pick it up, and you can either right click to just drop it, and that works out really kind of well, and you can just put this back. So if there's a block or anything above it, it won't be able to pick it up, but otherwise it can. Now sadly, this can't do anything like chests or anvils that has an inventory, but it can pick up most things, which is pretty neat, and I think could be used early game to, let's say, build your nether portal. If you don't have a diamond pickaxe yet, this would be a little easier to get pretty early game. I take that back, because the copper magnet needs a netherite ingot. That feels kind of silly. I don't really know why they would lock that behind getting netherite, but I guess it is. If I were making that, I would probably make that a little easier to get early on, but it's still a really cool tool and really useful to use. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the flamethrower, and this is basically just a weapon. So you can right click to toggle it on and basically have a flamethrower, and then right click it to toggle it off. And as you can see, you can very easily kill mobs pretty quickly. And I mean, this is something that you really don't have to pay much attention to. You can kind of just fire away and take them down. The other neat thing about this is it also works as a portable smelter. So if I right click it, you can see we super quickly smelted up that stone, and immediately it looks like it's smelted all the way to like the end of what it could be smelted to. But if you want to like cook up your food or smelt stone as you're mining with your portable drill, you totally can do that, which is really neat. And the last and probably most fun tool is our grappling whisk, which works as like a grappling hook. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw my slime boots back on so we don't take damage. But you can see we can like grab blocks, pull ourselves towards it, and basically just fly. This is great. And honestly, I can't think of a better way to get around your world, especially if you combine this with your jetpack. I mean, you could never need an elytra again. Just grappling around and jetpacking through your world. This is a really cool item. So let's go ahead and just throw jetpack on. Oh yeah, that is a whole lot of fun. You gotta put a little more thought into it than with an elytra, where you just kind of point your direction and right click. Because you kind of gotta plan and make sure like you're hitting where blocks are. But I mean, this is great. I absolutely love this, and I love that you have to actually craft all this up with Create instead of just going to the end and doing the easy Ender Dragon fight that we've all done a million times. Now, a super cool thing about all these tools is they can be enchanted. So, our drill can be enchanted with digging, which allows us to dig in a 3x3 section instead of just the single block. So now if I come over here, you can see we can automatically dig 3x3, which is so useful. Especially just because how quick it is, that's going to be great for clearing out large builds. Our block picker can be enchanted with gravity gun, which essentially allows us to grab mobs. So if I go ahead and just grab a mob here, you can see we can now pick them up and just move them around. And one cool thing about this is if instead of right clicking, you left click, you can punch them away from you. So as long as you don't get killed, it's really quite a useful little tool. Our flamethrower can be enchanted with Hellfire, which basically turns our fire into soul fire. If I grab my canister back. Now, one thing you'll notice about this is it'll actually set stuff on fire. So it's a little more dangerous, especially if you're using it near your wooden base. But I would imagine it's going to do a bit more damage. So I'm going to go ahead and grab both flamethrowers. And we're going to grab some test subjects. We're going to see how quickly these take them out. So a regular flamethrower. Pretty quick, not instant, but that was pretty good. Soulfire definitely went faster. So our Hellfire enchantment is going to definitely be more effective, but you do got to watch out for that fire that it's going to place down everywhere. And then last, we have the Whisk, which has the Impact enchantment. And essentially what this does is at the end of your grapple, it's going to do damage. So if I, instead of grappling onto a block, I grapple onto the villager, you see when I release, he will be damaged. Now this isn't the easiest thing to trigger, but it does work, and maybe the villager wasn't the best guy to use for it, but there you go. You saw when we released, we did a little bit of damage to him. So it is a nice little feature to having a grappling hook. If you accidentally grapple into mobs, you can hit them away from you a little bit and do a bit of damage. So a lot of really neat tools and a lot of really useful ones that I would definitely recommend adding to your arsenal. And of course, one thing I can't go without mentioning is there is a brass cube, which is crafted with some brass and netherite. That is essentially the companion cube of this mod, which you can then pick up with your gravity gun, which looks like, I believe we're going to need to enchant this first. We don't. So you do have a little companion cube that you can carry around with you. It does look pretty cool and definitely could be a nice little centerpiece to your base. Okay, I did discover a neat little feature about the copper magnet, and that's if you're holding it, it'll suck items up. So let's throw some stuff. Then we equip it. When we get close, it'll automatically suck them into our inventory. That's super cool. So it attracts in a 4-block radius, which is definitely quite useful just to like throw in your offhand. And now it's time to take a look at the craziest part of the mod, drones. So drones are essentially little sidekicks that you can basically have follow you around your world and do various tasks. Now on its own, a drone isn't going to actually do anything. It just kind of is going to follow over your head and you can just kind of, you know, have it there. Now, one cool thing is we do have the drone controller, which basically using the arrow keys, we can push out and then it'll just kind of follow our cursor. I'll pull back in to have it hover over our head again. So we can kind of control exactly where the drone goes, which is a really nice little thing to have. Now, when we're not holding the controller, obviously it'll just kind of come back to our head, which is pretty cool. Now, where this goes from pretty cool to super cool is with the modules. So the first we're going to take a look at is the copper magnet. So one thing you'll notice right away is it already has an inventory. So now, when I go ahead and right click it above me, we do have 3 blocks of inventory. What this does is essentially, is if I have stuff that I drop on the ground, our drone will be able to automatically pick it up. So you can see I dropped that fan component and it's already in our drone, which is a pretty cool little feature. Especially if you're out mining, you can have like a army of drones picking up all of your stuff that you're dropping on the ground. Now this also does work with our controller, and it can pick up not only items, but it can also pick up mobs. So I believe if we right click this, it's a little finagly, but you can see we can pick up a whole bunch of mobs at once, which could be really useful for a lot of stuff, like especially moving around villagers and things of that nature. But as well as mobs, we can also pick up blocks. So if you have a block that's really far away that you need to pick up, if you don't end up grabbing a cat, you should be able to pick up blocks. No, it's not perfect. It's certainly not perfect, but yeah, there we go. You can see we were able to pick up that block, and then we're also gonna grab any mobs that happen to wander by, but then we can drop it, which is really quite neat. The next component is going to be our brass drill head. Now what this is going to do is it's going to actually allow us to mine. So you can see we have an inventory again. We're going to right click the top of that to control it. And now I can press right click and it'll turn on the drill and we can now automatically mine blocks. Now it looks like it just does a single block and then you have to right click it again to activate it. But it is pretty cool little feature. And what I can do is I can just mine this whole area out and you can see we can then unselect our controller or press the down arrow key to bring it back. And now when we go in our inventory, we have those items we just got, which is super cool. The next drone component we're going to take a look at is the fan component. So if we go ahead and turn this drone on and then we activate it with our controller, you can see stuff is now blown away from us. So as we walk near stuff, it'll just kind of automatically go away. This will be really useful if you're down caving, because you kind of just have mobs be thrown off away from you. So this is a nice little feature to have, and we can even like control it out if we want to blow stuff away from a distance. And last but not least, we do have our vault component, which basically adds a larger inventory to our drone, so we can now have 9 whole slots ready to be used. And this would be really nice, just have like an army of these following you. You could even hold your controller and just like send them out, just to kind of have extra storage just kind of always following you around. These are super cool and a whole lot of fun to use. So this has been Create Stuff and Additions, a really cool add-on that I would definitely recommend you guys checking out and adding to your mod packs if you think it's a good fit for you. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys next time. In the meantime, go create something cool. Bye-bye.